Have you ever given any thought to why so many people feel like they're stuck on the financial hamster wheel? Kind of almost like we're being robbed, but we don't even know we're being robbed. Well, it's not a feeling. It's actually happening. You are being robbed. You are taking part in the largest heist ever. And you actually think you're getting a deal. They've literally got you to the point where you think you are getting a deal, or at least you were getting a deal. So you're probably wondering, what in the world are you talking about, Chris? Why are we being robbed? Who's robbing us? What heist? And why are we happy about this? Because last time I checked, I'm not happy when I get robbed. Well, you'd be happy if you didn't know you were being robbed, because you're literally being taught to look over here when it's all happening on the other side of the table. So what am I talking about? Your mortgage. That's where you're being robbed. But let me take a step back. How many of you actually have a mortgage? You do? Great. What is your interest rate? It's low, isn't it? Oh, wow. Actually, put it down below. What is your rate? Some people probably have 2, maybe 2.5. That would be really good. Anyone got a 3%er? How about a 3.75? Because that's about where I'm at. And for the longest time, I was like, holy crap, we got a great mortgage. Matter of fact, if you were to sell your house today, which has that 3.75 mortgage, and get a new house, you'd be upward of about 7% here in 2024. And you'd think you're getting screwed because you're paying 7%, but you're getting screwed whether you're paying 2, 5, 7, or 15%. The only difference between the rate is the payment. So what I thought I would do today is show you how you're literally being robbed. But I'm not gonna just show you how you're being robbed out of your money. I'm gonna show you how to get ahead of that. I'm gonna show you why so much of what you've been taught and heard about is wrong. The thing that's most important is the cycle. You have been on this cycle over and over again, and the banks know. They know how to get the money from you. They know how to rob you. And in thinking of how this is gonna get done, I couldn't help but to think of the movie Men in Tights. Some of you might be too young, but check this out. We're men in tights. We rob from the rich and we give to the poor. That's right. We may look like pansies, but don't get us wrong, or else we'll put out your lights. We're men, manly men. We're men in tights. A toll is a toll and a roll is a roll. And if we don't get no tolls, then we don't eat no rolls. I have no idea what that means, but let's dive in. All right, so your mortgage. Let's just assume you've got one of those low interest rate mortgages. How do you feel about that? You feel pretty good, don't you? You feel like you won, you socked it to them. You got in there just at the right time and you are ahead, and you're never gonna sell your house, because if you do, you gotta go to a higher interest rate. Nope, we're just gonna live here forever. But you're kind of wrong. Just like Men in Tights, like they're stealing from you. Because even though you have a low interest rate, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, because the bank has it figured out. And a matter of fact, let's just think about today. Now imagine this. Imagine a bank in your town puts a giant sign out in front of the bank that says, fixed 30-year mortgages, 2.75, hurry up, today only. What would you do? What would everybody else in your town do? They would line up to get themselves a new mortgage. They would refinance into that new mortgage. And they would all think they're getting a great deal. Now, here's what they would be getting, and this is a plus. They would be getting a lower monthly payment, as long as it's a lower interest rate than what they currently have. Their payment would go down. But you realize just because their payment goes down doesn't mean they're actually saving any money. Let me prove this. So we have calculators that we've built to show you that you are losing to the velocity of interest. Banks understand it's not about the rate, it's about the velocity of money, the velocity of interest charged. So when you get a mortgage, have you ever even looked at your mortgage statement? Have you ever even looked at how much interest and how much principal you're giving away? Because I will tell you, in the first 7 years, you probably look a lot like this. Take a look at this right here. Think about it. In the first year, if you got a mortgage, and I just ran a really simple one, $425,000 mortgage, which is about a median home in this country, 4.25%, pretty inexpensive for today's purpose. 360 months, which is a 30-year mortgage. So if we were to look at all of this and we looked at the payment you're gonna make, so if you did that, a 4.25%, $425,000, 30-year fixed mortgage, your payment would be $2,090.74. Not too bad. But how much is going toward principal and how much is going toward interest? Well, if you look at column number 1 right there, you will see that you're giving $585.54 of that $2,090 payment. That's going to principal. How much is going to interest? $1,505. So if we really were to figure that out, that means that 71, almost 72% of your payment is going to interest. Just interest. You're barely paying the principal down at all. So if your house is not appreciating, you're not getting ahead. You're just paying the bank. Hence, that's how they're stealing from you. And if we do that and we just were to go down and look at every single column, what you will find is it doesn't get better until after the 7th year. If we go to year 7, out of that $2,090 payment, $755 went to principal and $1,335 went to interest. It's still 63. And if we just keep going down 10 years in, you're still at 58% going to interest. So where does it flip? Well, I don't know, it's a long scroll down, but about right here, year 26. Year 26, you have now flipped. And now only 19% is going to interest, so the lion's share is going to principal. But you know what? You can determine where the flip happened and where you think it's better. Most of you would say, well, 50-50 is probably pretty good. Well, 50-50 doesn't happen until about year 13. But you know what? Here, listen. Let's just scroll up to the top. We already did all the math for you. And what we've determined is if you were to just ride that mortgage out, which you won't, but let's just kid ourselves and pretend that we just pay this off. Your total principal that you took out the mortgage for was $425. How much interest do you pay over 30 years? $327,668.03. That means that your $425,000 house actually cost you $752,668.03. Can't forget that 3 cents. That means for your beautiful home purchase with that really, really low intro 4.25% 30-year fixed mortgage you got, you gave up 77.1% to interest. Every payment you made, 77% of all those payments went to interest. The rest went to your principal. How do you feel about that? Literally, like, you know, when people say, oh, don't pay that mortgage off, that rate is so low, you'd be stupid to pay that mortgage off. I would come back and say, stupid is, stupid does. You are being stupid if you're not paying that mortgage down. So some of the people that say, pay your house off, they're actually not too far off. Now, I know there's 2 schools of thinking here, but if it is your primary house and you have the means to pay your mortgage down and make extra principal payments, maybe 1 extra payment a month, 2 extra payments a month, you need to do that because 77% going to interest, they're just stealing from you. But it gets even better because we'd be kidding ourselves if we actually thought we were gonna live in a house for 30 years, right? You're not. I'll tell you that right now, you're not. Because one of 2 things is gonna happen, and the banks figured this out, not me. I'm not smart enough to figure this out. But the banks, through their ultimate wisdom and doing this hundreds, if not thousands of times, have figured out the statistics. They have figured out that you, your neighbor, and everybody you know will more than likely move every 7 years. And if you don't move, you will refinance your mortgage because the rates will go down. And why do they know this? Well, they understand cyclical patterns, which are a 7 to 10 year cycle. It's been pushed a little bit longer, but it's normally a 7-year cycle, meaning if you take out a mortgage today at 7, inside of a 7-year period, they know rates will be lower than 7. And when rates go down, they know you'll come marching into the bank to do one of those fancy dancy refinances to either pull cash out, which I would agree with pulling the cash out, but also to reduce your payment. So what do? They refinance you. They reset the clock. So now the highest amount of interest, the velocity, is going to the bank again. But not only that, have you ever taken a mortgage out that didn't have a whole bunch of closing costs? A lot of closing costs. You know, when you get your mortgage statement, you ever look at all those lines? Settlement charges, attorney fees, title fees, appraisal fees, lots of fees. And who's getting some of that money? Well, the bank is, of course. So the bank isn't just getting the money up front in fees, the bank is getting 70+% of every payment up front. Like, that's freaking brilliant. Come on, put your hands together. Come on, the banks really, really got this one right. Well, you should learn from this. Because if the banks are that smart, why don't you just copy what the banks do? Yeah, that's right. If the banks are so smart that they've tricked you and everybody else to believe that the lower rate is awesome and you should always go to the lower rate, when the bank looks on the back end, which they now have to print this on your statements and in your mortgage, but you just don't read it. Most people don't read it. They're just like, hey, we want this house, we want the lowest payment, give it to us. You don't even look at how much money you're gonna pay because they do tell you. So now that we know that the banks are stealing from you, how can we get ahead of this? Well, there's a lot of different ways, and I'm not gonna go through every single one of them because I've made video after video showing you how to do this. But let's just talk about one simple way that you have heard a lot about: making extra principal payments. If you just make one extra principal payment per month, you will drastically reduce the amount of interest you pay the bank. If you make 2 extra principal payments, you will reduce that interest that you give to the bank even more. But I don't think that's what you should do. I think you should actually look at a couple other options. Number one, there's these things called all-in-one mortgages. It's kind of like a home equity line of credit, but they wrap your mortgage in it. So it's like a mortgage, but they're only gonna charge you simple interest. And here's why people shy away from them. Right now, if you were to get one of those all-in-one mortgages, which is really a line of credit, you would probably pay upward of almost 8 to 9%. But why would you ever do that when you've got a 3% mortgage, or in this scenario that I just showed you, a 4.25% mortgage? You wouldn't, right? If you understood how velocity of money works, you'd be jumping at that 7 to 8% interest rate because you would know the difference between that simple interest and the amortized interest that you get in a traditional mortgage. Because I just showed you the numbers. Let's look at them again. Right there. That's your amortization schedule. I mean, come on, scroll down, look at it. Look at that, all 30 years. But just focus on that column right there that says interest. And then you know your payment's $2,090, just look at that. Come on, that's what you're giving away. Now just imagine if you did an all-in-one mortgage, but all you paid was simple interest. And the principal payments that you make on it were basically up to you. So you could make extra principal payments anytime and they're just gonna charge you simple interest. Well, I don't have the math behind that, but we have done that math and it certainly makes more sense, especially if you use the all-in-one mortgage along with a concept called velocity banking. And then if you pair up that with the infinite banking concept, now you've got yourself a really strong strategy. But let's go one more round, right? How else could you get rid of this mortgage? Well, I already mentioned it, the infinite banking concept. Most of you are saving money, right? So let's say you're saving money into your policy, your specially designed whole life, and you have paid off everything else. The only thing left is your mortgage. But you're like, I don't want to pay my mortgage off because it's only 4.25% when I can lend that money out at 12%. I agree with that. Lend the money out at 12, but then take the 12% interest that you get back and dump all of that down on your mortgage. Now what would that do? That would pay your mortgage off really fast, okay? The second thing to understand is you could use a home equity line of credit. Now, I'm gonna put a video up at the end of this on how I'm paying my mortgage off, because when I saw this with my personal mortgage, I was literally just like, say what? I'm giving the bank how much money? How much interest are they taking? I thought I had a good rate, but I never really focused on the mathematics and the velocity of where my money was going. I just did the same thing so many others do, and I looked at the rate, and that's where I went wrong. So when you start looking at how this works, you need to wake up and you need to realize that your mortgage, even if it's the lowest rate in history, is not doing you any favors. So you've probably heard of Henry Ford, right? Well, check this quote out. So Henry Ford, back in his days, he said, "It is well enough that people of our nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Think about that. You just saw the numbers. You just saw how they are stealing from you. They are robbing you, and they are making you feel like you got the best deal ever. Maybe the revolution should just start with you figuring out how to pay your mortgage off. Because here's what I would do, or actually, let me just tell you what I am doing. I'm paying my mortgage off, but I absolutely refuse to allow my money to be trapped in the walls of my house. So as I'm paying my mortgage off, I'm going to go to a different bank and I'm going to get a home equity line of credit. And I'm going to use that home equity line of credit, even if it's 8%, and I'm going to use that money to go out and work for me, because as I pay my mortgage down, that means I've got more and more equity available, which means that home equity line of credit gives me access to the equity, the hidden equity trapped in my walls. And then that money can go out and work for me. So when my mortgage is completely paid off, guess what I've got? I've got a huge chunk of money that I can use to go make more money. I can use for all sorts of things. But if you stay trapped, playing their game, allowing them to steal and rob from you, well, everything else I just said I'm doing won't be your reality. So it's time to really wake up. It's time to be the Robin Hood in your life. It's time to go out and, I'm not gonna say steal from the rich, okay? But maybe it's time for you to do the robbing. Don't rob a bank. I'm not saying that. All disclaimers out, I'm not telling you to rob a bank, but don't let them rob you. So in today's modern Robin Hood, we're not gonna steal from the bank, but we're gonna stop them from robbing us. I like that. Men in tights, they had it right. So in closing, I think it's pretty simple to understand what you need to do. You need to start taking back control of your money. You need to turn the velocity of money back in your favor, and it's very simple to do. Jump on a call with me and our team. Get on a call with us. We'll show you how to do this, and we will literally mathematically show you exactly what it will look like if you decided to pay your mortgage down the ways I mentioned. And you can go one step further and learn all about all-in-one mortgages, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot to ask one of the most important things, and that was asking you to subscribe to this channel right there. Click that button, subscribe. And then while you're at it, why don't you also hit that little bell up top? Smash that bell. Is that what Tyson does? Yeah, hit that bell so that you're notified every time I put a new video out. And if you like this video, check this one out right here. Free and clear in 66 months. How I'm paying my mortgage off and taking back control.